There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. It's Saturday, and this is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me at the Supernatural News Desk, Mr. Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Are you ready to begin our week of weird with a look back at the stories that were?
I am.
Was,
were.
Is, be. How does that? Yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at what.
Should be. Should thou be? I don't know.
Speaketh too mucheth, I think. All right, where are we going to begin this week's weird and wonderful news?
Well, sadly, Dave, let's start with this story out of Pahrump, Nevada, a follow-up to the sad and tragic death of nationally syndicated radio host Art Bell. When he passed away on Friday the 13th in April, they said they were going to do an autopsy. And the results from the autopsy did come back this past week. It turns out that Art did die from an accidental overdose of 4 different drugs earlier in the year. That, according to the Clark County Coroner's Office, the official cause of death is listed as intoxication of oxycodone, hydrocodone, diazepam, and carisoprodol. The Coroner's Office said on Wednesday. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and hypertension were also significant conditions that contributed to his death. Bell died Friday, April 13th in his home in Pahrump. The Nye County Sheriff's Office said he hosted the popular radio show Coast to Coast AM before he left the airwaves in 2002. Don't forget about Midnight in the Desert. This article did, but we didn't. He broadcast the show from his radio station KNYE in Pahrump. The program focused on Bell's conspiracy theories and his fascination with the paranormal and unexplained phenomena such as UFOs and crop circles.
Now, we did last night on Midnight in the Desert, we did our final farewell to Art Bell. Mm-hmm. As Midnight in the Desert, after Art passed away, Heather had gone MIA to deal with the grieving, and there was never officially a goodbye show. And we had been waiting for the final word from the autopsy. And I know there's a lot of questions still circulating out there, and ours is not to judge. You can look at the fact that Art was suffering with severe back issues and COPD, which is a brutal and horrifying disease in itself. Mm-hmm. And it was getting worse. As a matter of fact, as we mentioned about a year ago, we thought we were going to lose him when he went into the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's interesting to me that he passed away from drug intoxication plus complications of the other things he had going on. But all 4 of those basically are suppressants for your breathing. And it was Friday the 13th. A lot of people are speculating that maybe he chose that date. And that's why that combination of drugs were taken. And that very well could be. And I'm not here to judge. The man was dying a slow death as it was with COPD, and people that have had it and have spoken to us in the past tell us just how unbelievably unbearable it is. And if he chose to go out with his form of dignity in his way of doing it and his styling, we can't fault the man for doing that. And if it was nothing more than just an accidental overdose, accidents happen, and that is a shame as well. But we'll never forget the legacy of what Art Bell is, and we know that without Art Bell and Coast to Coast AM, there would have never been a Darkness on the Edge of Town paranormal radio show, Darkness Radio, Beyond the Darkness, Midnight in the Desert. There would never have been all of what we share today. So we thank you, Art Bell, and you will be missed.
Absolutely.
All right, where are we off to next, sir?
Well, we move on where a baby miraculously survives being ripped from her mom's womb and thrown out onto the grass in a horrible car crash, Dave. The mom was tragically crushed and killed by the truck's load-heavy wooden planks. It came free as the vehicle turned over. An unborn baby miraculously survived after being ripped from her mother's womb and flung from a truck during a horror road crash. The child's heavily pregnant mom was a passenger in the vehicle when the driver lost control and overturned the truck on a motorway. As the vehicle turned over, she was thrown from the cabin before being crushed by planks of wood that also fell from the truck and tore the tot from her belly. Tragically, the mom-to-be was killed in the accident, which happened near, I believe it's Cajati, between Sao Paulo and Curitiba in southeast Brazil on Thursday. But shocked paramedics then discovered the crying baby girl lying on a grass verge several meters away. Incredibly, the infant, whose umbilical cord had been severed during the accident, was found in perfect health and without a single scratch. She is now being treated at the nearby Parashare Aku Regional Hospital's neonatal intensive care ward. Police and social services are trying to identify the child's deceased mother, who was 39 weeks pregnant and was found without any documents. Elton Fernando Barboza, the first paramedic on the scene on the BR-116 highway, told Brazil's A Tribuna newspaper it was a serious accident with one reported person deceased. When I arrived there, I saw that the truck driver was injured and he was seen by the first aid team. I went looking for the fatal victim who was underneath the wood, and when I heard the cries of a baby, it was which total apprehension because there was or had been no reports of a third victim. He said he found the baby several meters away from the mother and quickly called for the ambulance to take her to the hospital. He said the fetus was literally expelled by the impact on the mother. The impact was so great that this opened up the mother's belly and the child was ejected. Oh, jeez.
I know what this is like. It starts off such a horrific visualization the way they're explaining this. Mm-hmm. But I just want people to understand, if you don't believe in miracles, I don't know how else you explain what happened to this baby. Because as you're reading this, this accident happens, heavily pregnant woman, truck flips, boards everywhere, baby ejected out of the mother's stomach from the accident.
Mm-hmm. Umbilical cord severed.
Umbilical cord severed by one of the boards so that it's not attached to its dying mother, which would have killed it as well.
Right.
And it lands safely in a grassy knoll, no scratches. Mm-hmm. Hey, this kid is either Clark Kent, right, or the second coming. I mean, it's astounding the amount of things that had to align for this child's life to take place. I hope somebody documents this kid's life from now until their death to see, why was this kid spared. It's an amazing story.
The paramedic went on to say she was perfect, healthy, without a scratch. We can say that in those circumstances, it really was a miracle that she survived. I'll be honest, it was God, the paramedic went on to say, but what I saw, I have no idea how she came out alive. The mother was underneath several planks of wood. I don't know how this child got out there with her life. The paramedic then added, it was emotional. Unfortunately, we had the death of the mother, which is something we always never happens, he went on to say. But in the midst of the tragedy, we were able to save the baby. This event has marked my life. I don't think there has ever been an accident like this in the history of the motorway. We lost a life, but we were responsible for giving life to a girl. Solange Batista, a nurse at the Parashare Aku Hospital, said staff had given the baby, who weighs 6 pounds, 8 ounces, the name of Giovanna, which means protected by God. She said she is really calm baby. She doesn't cry. If you play with her, she even smiles. The truck driver, Jonathan Ferreira, who was also taken to the hospital but was released later the same day, was charged with manslaughter in the case. He told rescue crews that he didn't know the woman but was only giving her a lift. Authorities are now trying to identify the woman and have appealed for relatives to come forward. If none are found, she will be buried as unidentified, and the baby girl will be sent to an orphanage and put up for adoption. So there you go.
I want that baby, Tim. That will be my lucky 12th child in the household.
Lucky 12?
Oh, my God, this kid has got to have like a shamrock imprinted on it. If anybody's going to have that baby, I want it. There's got to be good luck surrounding it now. What a tragedy for its mother, though, and everybody involved in the accident. It's horrific, but seriously, wow. I mean, that to me is just staggering, the amount of stars that needed to align for that moment, Tim.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's something else. That is.
All right, where are we off to next?
We're headed to New York, but not for anything good. A man accused of killing a New York City woman he met on a dating app says voices in his head made him do it. Of course. I believe it's...
It gets weirder. It gets weirder.
I'm going to try to say this guy's name. It's an unusual one. Danwell Drayton, I think his name is, spoke to a reporter with New York's Daily News who visited him at a Los Angeles jail. In an interview published Tuesday, Drayton says he remembers strangling Queens nurse Samantha Stewart 2 weeks ago and talked about voices urging him to harm people. I really liked her. I didn't want to kill her, he said, from behind a glass partition. They told me she had to die. Drayton was arrested last week in Los Angeles after police say he sexually assaulted a different woman, tried to strangle her, and refused to let her leave her apartment. He has not pleaded guilty. Drayton told the Daily News he also remembers choking that woman. Drayton's attorney declined to comment on Wednesday. 2 law enforcement officials previously told the Associated Press that after his arrest, Drayton claimed he had killed at least 5 women in Connecticut and New York. The officials were not authorized to discuss the investigation publicly and spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity. Investigators are trying to verify his stories. Drayton told the Daily News that he and Stewart visited a racetrack and shared an artichoke pizza, and he had no intention of hurting her. I'm a passenger in my own body, Drayton said repeatedly. It's mind control, he said. They use direct energy weapons on me to control my mind.
Jeez, right?
Yeah, right.
He's getting radio beams to his brain to kill, which, first of all, it's one thing to be schizophrenic and believe you have voices that are telling you to do these things, but then also believing that they are beaming these messages directly into your head. You know, it's one of those deals that it sounds so lunatic, there's no way it's true. But on the other side, what we've heard about these domestic terrorism things and people being harassed electronically, it does get kind of creepy and makes you scratch your head.
Yeah, Drayton said he strangled Stewart and tried to resuscitate her, but eventually her body went stiff, as he was quoted as saying. He used bleach to partially clean up the crime scene, but intentionally left his Egyptian cologne behind in the hopes that police could link it to him. I wanted to get caught, he was quoted as saying. I took some of her things with me and used them. I kept my same phone. I knew they could track it. I didn't know how long it would take, he said. Drayton said Tuesday he also recalled choking an ex-girlfriend at a park in Inwood on Long Island. That woman, Zainia Barney, told the Daily News this week that Drayton seemed like a cool guy initially, but when she broke up with him, he tried to strangle her until bystanders intervened. The next day, he threatened to kill her and her family, she said. After buying a one-way ticket to California using Stewart's credit card, Drayton landed in Los Angeles and met a woman while taking an Uber ride, he said. He said they went back to the woman's apartment where he choked her. He recalled seeing her body wedged between a toilet and the wall, thinking she was dead, but then she stirred. Drayton said he attempted suicide with Advil before police caught up with him. That's a slow death, I'll tell you that.
It is. But you know what? He felt good until that moment.
Oh, I bet he had no inflammation whatsoever. He told the Daily News he couldn't remember meeting a 23-year-old woman he is accused of raping in Brooklyn, but he also said the voices cause him to have blackouts. They make it so I can't remember, he said. Associated Press writers Colleen Long in Washington. Oh, okay, that's just a report. Byline. I could tell you who wrote it, but I'm not gonna. There you go. That's the end of that story. That is just bizarre that This is one bizarre cat, that's for sure.
Oh, no doubt about it. Very strange. Hey, since we're talking true crime with that story, I do want to make a big mention. You and I have something pretty cool we're doing.
Oh, yes.
For all of the subscribers of True Crime Tuesday. So if you've been a subscriber, you are already completely in the mix as long as you maintain your subscription until January 1st, because all subscribers who have subscribed and remain subscribed, and you can subscribe right now, who subscribe and keep their memberships till January 1st, we're going to be doing a drawing on January 1st, and one lucky listener will receive $500. How do you like that, Tim? That's like 10 years worth of subscriptions of True Crime Tuesday.
That's awesome.
So we're going to give away $500, but the way you have to do it is subscribe now to the best in True Crime Talk Radio. Never miss another minute of True Crime Radio with True Crime Tuesday. And you will automatically be put into the mix for our drawing, which will take place January 1st. And we'd love for you to be a part of that. So go subscribe right now. How do you do that? Go to darknessradio.com, click on the True Crime Tuesday banner to subscribe. You can also go to patreon.com/True Crime Tuesday and subscribe. Or if you have our Darkness Radio app and you have not yet employed it, just make sure you always update that app. Go in and refresh and update the app, but then you can subscribe right through that to True Crime Tuesday and never miss another minute. So you'll get the best of True Crime Tuesday and all of the great shows. We release a new episode every Tuesday. Plus, you get all the access to going back almost 2 years into the archives now with all of the episodes we've got. Plus, we put out some extra content from time to time. So keep checking back for that. But subscribe now and stay with us until January 1st. And we hope you'll stay with us beyond that. But we would really like people to give it a shot, hear the show, and get a chance. So for those of you that have been considering it and you've been on the fence post, this is your time to take advantage of it. And we are starting right now, starting here in the month of August. So subscribe now and get in for a chance to win $500. All right, Tim, where are we going next?
We're going to the Bermuda Triangle, Dave. You know, it was pointed out to me.
Oh, hell no, Tim.
Why?
Hell no. There's devils and missing planes and ships and crazy things going on. I think that's where the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald began, Tim.
I don't know if you're
the
aware.
Bermuda Triangle, also known as the Great Lake they call Gitchagumi.
I don't know if you're aware of this, Dave.
Huh?
But when we go on Chris Jericho's Rock and Wrestling Rager.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Tim. That looks so amazing, and especially because we're going to be going at one of the creepiest times of year. We're going to be going during the Halloween season. What is it, the 26th through the 31st? There's no way that trip could be better. To be on a cruise with rockers, with wrestlers, and with your favorite paranormal talk show hosts. How could we make that trip any cooler, Tim?
Sailing through the Bermuda Triangle.
What?
Yeah.
We're going through the Bermuda Triangle, Tim?
Yeah.
We're going through the Bermuda Triangle.
If the sailing pattern is correct, yeah.
If it's not, we're going to end up in Boston Harbor? Or
yes, we're going to end up having a tea party in Boston Harbor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
so how cool is that? The Rockin' Rager Wrestling Cruise with Chris Jericho and your buddies here from Beyond the Darkness. It's a Bermuda Triangle cruise too. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I stand corrected. It sounds cool, but now we have an answer. You're saying, Tim, we know.
There's I hadn't said it yet, but I will. Yeah.
I must be psychic. Look at how I'm linking in already, Tim.
Yeah. Scientists, Dave, believe they've solved the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle, so we don't need to worry so much when we go on that cruise. Yeah.
Mystery solved. Turns out it's just a big baby playing with all the ships and planes in his giant bathtub in the sky, and he's got to put him back now, right?
Not so much, no.
What?
No.
No? That's not it?
Nope.
Is it the devil reaching up from the bottom of the ocean and snatching souls, Tim?
It's a bit more sciencey than that, Dave.
Oh, science. I like science, Tim. Science doesn't frighten me.
Yeah, well, it should. It should. British scientists believe 100-foot rogue waves could be the reason why so many boats have sunk in the mysterious Bermuda Triangle. Dave, 100-foot rogue waves.
Everybody gone surfing USA. 100 wave. That's got to be the best ride in the history of surfing, Tim. No?
Which one's going to be Jack and which one's going to be Rose on the cruise? That's what I want to know.
There's only room for one on the door of destiny, Tim.
That's true.
And I'm sorry. I've voted you off the island.
What?
You're going. I'll hold your hand until you freeze over, and then I'll promise not to let go. And the minute you pass away, I will let go and shove you under like Rose did. Just fair warning. Fair warning. I'm honest about it, Tim.
I do have a lot of...
but my heart will go on for you.
I do have a lot of buoyant fat on me. I suppose I could float until the sharks get me.
That's right.
The infamous body of water in the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean stretches over 430,000 miles between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Suave. Also known as the Devil's Triangle, the area features multiple shipping lanes and has claimed over 1,000 lives in the last 100 years, but experts at the University of Southampton believe the mystery can be explained by a natural phenomenon. Go ahead, Dave, do it. Phenomenon, Dave. Phenomenon.
It's been fun, Tim, because people have been reaching out to me telling me how much they absolutely despise me because we placed that song into their minds.
Yeah.
And they can't get rid of it for the rest of the day.
Well,
and I even had another fellow podcast show that said, "Oh, we do that same thing. Great minds think alike. We did it within the same week." I said, "Yeah, we've been doing it for 10 years." And he goes, "Oh, I stand corrected."
Yeah.
But it's nothing genius. I mean,
no.
I'd like to say it is, but it's not. The word sounds like mana.
It does.
Mana. So we just throw it in there from time to time.
Yep.
But that's in your head now. You can't get it out.
Nope. It's a natural phenomenon known as... No, I'm not doing it again.
What?
It's just recapping the line.
Okay, sorry.
I mean for you to do it again. Phenomena. No. See, I'm going nuts. I'm just knocking microphones over. It's known as rogue waves, Dave. Not
what
like
is?
from the X-Men, the natural phenomenon.
And we're done.
Okay. Appearing on Channel 5's documentary, The Bermuda Triangle Enigma, the scientists use indoor simulators to recreate the monster wave surges. I think it's just an excuse to play with water inside, to be honest with you.
Maybe.
Yeah. Rogue waves, which only last a few minutes, were first observed by satellites in 1997 off the coast of South Africa. Some have even measured nearly 100 feet high, Dave. Some of them. Not all of them.
Everybody go surfing.
Mm-hmm. The research team built a model of the USS Cyclops, a huge vessel which went missing in the triangle in 1918, claiming 300 lives. And because of its sheer size and flat base, although we think you have a perfectly round base, don't you get a complex about it, it does not take long before the model is overcome with water during simulation. Dr. Simon Boxall, an ocean and earth scientist, says that the infamous area in the Atlantic can see 3 massive storms coming together from different directions, the perfect conditions for a rogue wave. Boxall believes such a surge in water could snap a boat such as the Cyclops in two. He said there are storms to the south and north which come together, and if there are additional ones from Florida, it can be a potentially deadly formation of rogue waves. They are steep, they are high. We've measured waves in excess of 30 meters or 98 feet. The bigger the boat gets, the more damage is done. Oh, God, that's not good news for us. If you can imagine a rogue wave with peaks at either end, there's nothing below the boat, so it snaps in two. And if it happens, he went on to say, if it happens, it can sink in 2 to 3 minutes. The whole boat. And that's the end of that. Yeah, that's the end of that cheery story there.
That's cheerful.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, that's good news. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about that.
No.
We're going to be safe. You guys are going to be in the custody of Darkness Dave and Darkness Tim. So all will be well.
Right.
All right, Tim, where are we off to next?
We're talking TV now, Dave. Zachary Quinto is now the host of the new series In Search Of, the reboot of In Search Of. And he's talking about some of the mysteries that surprised him while filming In Search Of. Zach Quinto, the god of Trekkies, man with the master eyebrows, it says here, diversity champion and hero space pioneer, is coming to History Channel and a glorious reboot of the hit 1970 series In Search Of, originally presented by Leonard Nimoy, as most of us remember. Quinto gets deep into the investigations of some of the world's greatest mysteries. Quinto went on to say, I have a curious spirit. I'm drawn to those aspects of human experience that aren't fully explained or understood. This show gives me an opportunity to dive into some of those questions and explore them on the ground. Tackling all-time favorites like the search for the lost city of Atlantis, the quest for alien life, and probing the depths of the ocean in the quest for sea monsters, Quinto also has brought his own take, a unique take to the show. As a more modern host of the series, he has included contemporary conundrums such as he's going into our I can't even say it, Dave. Artificial intelligence. No,
it's coming for you, Tim.
They're going to get him, Dave. They're going to get him over to his side, Dave.
I find that highly illogical, Captain. I don't think so.
He's going to become one of them.
Good God.
I'm so disappointed. Life after death is one of the things he'll tackle as well, especially after they make him a robot, and the possibility that some people possess superhuman powers, like becoming a robot. I was really interested in pushing the show in new directions to involve topics that weren't relevant 40 years ago when the show originally premiered, he said, and for the topics you think have been so well explored that nothing new could possibly be discovered. We've had so much evolution in technology, science, and our understanding of those topics that we could approach them from a new angle entirely, Quinto went on to say. Whereas Nimoy took a back seat in the investigations, presenting the show from inside a studio, Quinto had different ideas. I wanted to bring it into a modern experience, he went on to say, going on the ground and conducting interviews myself, diving into the exploration, he explains. Quinto went on to describe his search for answers by flying around the world, interviewing a teenage boy who survived a mysterious attack in the shallows off the Australian coast, quizzing the physicist, helming the Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland. Oh, maybe he participated in one of those ceremonies trying to call up the devil. That would be kind of cool. Well, not like that. No.
Hello, this is the devil.
He called Rolf the dog?
Hey, devil, is your refrigerator running? Why, yes, I believe it is. You better go catch it. Click. So you think that's what Zachary Quinto's doing, Tim? You really think he's prank calling the devil?
I think so, from CERN, yeah.
Damn it, Zachary Quinto, you bastard.
You got me again. Well, no, like they put on like the goat's heads and the robes and they dance around the collider and then they hope that he shows up. They put out milk and cookies and they do all that crap. Haven't you seen that? Yeah. Like all the conspiracy theorists talk about it.
Milk and cookies?
Yeah.
What kind of cookies? Are they good ones?
I think they're archways.
Oreos?
They're archways. They get the good stuff.
No.
Yeah.
No good. I would see if it's not Oreos, I'm not showing up. Devil's head or not, I'm not going.
Well, the devil likes some good store-bought stuff. Not like...
Hey, bitches, where's the archways?
Yeah, exactly. It's archway. It's always archway. That's what the devil likes. Everybody knows that. Anyways. Oh, and also he's exploring archaeological evidence in the waters of the Aegean coast. Agency? Yeah. Everything's Aegean. It's all ancient. Throughout this exploration, Quinto talks to experts, witnesses, experiencers, and scientists in an attempt to grow a deeper understanding. And while his curiosity takes him there, his scientific mind allows him to probe everything he encounters. He said, I don't go in fully convinced of things, he admits. I need proof. I go into each experience with openness, but also healthy skepticism. The spirit of curiosity. Oh, I love that in Dickens' A Christmas Story. The spirit of curiosity.
Ghost of curiosity.
Oh,
that's the fourth ghost that visits him after everybody else.
Yeah.
And I believe it's dressed all in rubber with a ball gag.
Yes. Yeah. He's a very odd-looking spirit, but he's the nicer one out of all of them. The spirit of curiosity allows him to remain open to some extraordinary claims, including the conviction of one man that he has time traveled several times, and the curious experiences of several unrelated witnesses who had identical experiences of alien abduction. Hearing these witnesses recount their experiences, Quinto maintains a strict no judgment stance, responding with an upward flick of his eyebrows. He simply intones in the precursor of a million gifts to come. Wow, is what it says. We try to converge the notions of science and experience as objectivity and neutrality was my goal. He went on to say, I did try to hear people and recognize that it's not my job to tell them what they have or haven't experienced. I was looking for some indication what they say happened to them can be explained. That wasn't always the case, but I still found the conversations fascinating. So which was the investigation that surprised him the most? He said the phenomenon, go ahead, Dave, of sinkholes. Sinkholes. Yes, sinkholes. Sinkholes was what surprised him the most. He said, I felt like it was incongruous with the other things that we were doing. And excuse me, I wasn't that interested in it. But then when we did it, it was incredibly informative and actually really moving. Sinkholes moved him, Dave. I'm just saying. We spoke to a lot of people who were personally affected, who lost loved ones and homes, and a whole neighborhood that was threatened by a sinkhole. It was much more emotional than I expected it to be. Sinkholes got him, Dave. Just saying.
Well, that is, to me, it's fascinating, too. It is weird that sinkholes are just opening up places and swallowing entire, like, houses and blocks in some cases, entire parking lots. I don't get it. What just all of a sudden causes the ground to swallow? What?
You said swallow.
Right. Well, that phenomena really blows, Tim. What?
He said blows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the investigation that left him with the most questions, Dave, he says aliens. It's always aliens, Dave. He says, I think it was so exciting to travel to the Green Bank Observatory and meet with the scientists from SETI. Then the experiencers that we talked to who claim to have had extraterrestrial interactions, and as far-fetched and difficult to believe as some of them were, there were similarities between them that were shocking. It made me look at the whole thing from a new perspective. Dr. Spock would approve. Kinto once said that what he admires most about Star Trek is the idea that unity will overcome hatred, always overcome it. So if there are aliens out there, he said, we need to be friendly. The cornerstone of the Trek universe is something that Gene Roddenberry really believed, affirms Kinto. Truth is important, especially in this day and age, and I feel like we need to be holding each other accountable, he went on to say. Kinto's relationship with Leonard Nimoy goes beyond reprising some of his most well-known roles. Over the course of time, the two became friends until Nimoy's death in 2015. He said Leonard lived his life with true authenticity, and in the end, there was nothing that he didn't experience, explore, or express in his own journey, says Kinto admiringly. He was somebody who was endlessly engaged and engaging and curious. He never slowed down, and even to the end, his mind was incredibly sharp. There was a humor and a heart to him that few people get to experience. Although the History Project came along after Nimoy had passed away, and before Kinto had a chance to discuss it with him, he didn't hesitate to take it on. He said, part of what drew me to remaking the show was honoring that legacy. That's always been part of my intentions with Leonard and how he inspired me. So now he's nailed time travel and mind control. What's next? He said, well, we've talked about doing an episode on twins and what it is to be a twin. I'm fascinated by that, and I'm also fascinated by the folklores of spirituality and how they change from culture to culture. What are the through lines, and what are the things that separate cultural perspectives and beliefs? So there you go. That's a little bit of the inside of Zachary Kinto and the new In Search Of.
That's cool. I haven't seen it yet. Have you caught it?
I have not, no. But I want to.
Yeah, I'll have to set my scanners to stun or record, I guess. All right, where are we off to next?
Next, we move on to another TV star, Zach Baggins, who continues purchasing. You know, Dave, he has this museum out there in Las Vegas.
A what, you say?
Well, a little bit of a museum. Little.
Who does?
Zach Baggins, this haunted museum in Las Vegas.
Zach Baggins has a haunted museum in Las Vegas?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that would completely make sense with the signs I saw that said, come visit Zach Baggins' Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. Now it all comes together, Tim.
Yeah, it kind of does, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
And he recently purchased a painting that, well, let's just say it has a loose tie to Charles Manson. Charles Manson peed on it.
Come again?
Yeah, it was a painting, Dave, that Charles Manson peed on, and so Zach bought it.
What?
Yeah.
It's a painting Charles Manson did that he didn't like, so he peed on it, and Zach Baggins thought, I'd like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, different strokes for different folks. People find art in the strangest places, Tim.
Yeah. Zach Baggins, a notable paranormal investigator, has purchased a painting infamous cult leader Charles Manson allegedly urinated upon. Manson, who said to have created the artwork while in prison, supposedly was so unhappy with the result that he drenched the creation in his own urine out of frustration. Baggins, however, saw value in that and paid $2,500 for the painting, one that he claims still smells like pee.
How much?
$2,500, Dave. And
I will.
It still
I'll
has
crap on one of my kids' pictures on my fridge if you'll give me $150.
Well, he may.
I mean, I'm not a notorious killer yet, but
it's yet.
There's something to strive for.
Give it time, I guess.
Yeah.
It still smells like pee, Dave. It still has the asparagus smell.
Oh, gross. So you could just steep the painting in a pot of hot water and make you some Charles Manson tea?
Yes, yeah.
Charles Manson pea tea.
It is a scratch and sniff, Dave. So if you go to the museum, you can just put your olfactory senses right up to the deal and get a whiff of Manson. Baggins of the reality show Ghost Adventures. Yes. Baggins of the reality show Ghost Adventures has been amassing a collection of similarly morbid objects for his haunted museum in Las Vegas, and TMZ says the painting will be displayed as part of a murderabilia exhibit. He has previously purchased a set of Manson's dentures from the same dealer, which were supposedly stolen from the infamous murderer by another inmate in 2010, that according to TMZ. When Manson died in November, the fate of the notorious criminal's body became a concern amidst a legal battle for the rights to the corpse, with many noting the prurient interests, that's the biggest word I'll use all day, of sellers who trade in the body parts and artifacts of famous killers. Andy Kanan, and a victim advocate for the city of Houston, described this situation as capitalism at its worst to the New York Times. Other items in Baggins' spooky reliquary include a chair that belonged to Michael Jackson, a van previously owned by euthanasia proponent Dr. Death Kevorkian, and a demonic cabinet that serves as the inspiration for the film The Possession. It's actually a pretty good collection if you think about it.
Yeah, that's the Dybbuk box.
Yeah, the Dybbuk box. Mm-hmm. Baggins' collection of...
The Dybbuk box. The Dybbuk box.
I was wondering where you were going with that. Baggins' collection of so-called murderabilia is inspired by a profound interest in the paranormal that began when he was just 10 years old, according to the Haunted Museum's website. Baggins rose to fame as the subject of a Travel Channel documentary series. I almost said documentary series.
That was very good of you, Porky Pig.
Thank you.
A documentary series.
Reading's hard when you're.
I know.
When you're looped on opium. I've been going to the opium dens lately, Dave. It's kind of fun. You get to meet lots of interesting people. During which he and his crew sought to prove the existence of an... He said opium dens like I'm living in 1900. During which he and his crew sought to prove the existence of an afterlife by investigating some of the most haunted places on Earth. However, Baggins... truculence. They used the word truculence in this story. I'm so happy. However,
somebody should.
However, Baggins' truculence and impatience with several specters begat a series of popular memes, which were shared on social media. Have you seen any of these memes? I have not.
I've seen it. Unfortunately, because he's so dramatic in the way he moves and everything, there's some fantastic... Like, every time TMZ posts a story, well, look at it. You see it.
Yeah,
it's always that one where his arms are, like, extended and he's got this crazy look on his face. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting memes that have popped up about Zach over the years, but we love him. Fun guy. Where are we off to next?
I'll have to come out of the opium den every once in a while and take a look at some of those memes. We move on with TV. Netflix claims Stranger Things Series 3 will be worth the wait, which is good, as it likely won't air for another year yet. Another year, Dave. Stranger Things, Netflix paranormal sci-fi smash won't return until next summer, which has disappointed fans. However, Netflix has sought to quell their dismay by insisting it'll be worth the wait. It will be worth the wait. The show's creators are aware of the high expectations heaped on the third series. According to Netflix's Cindy Holland, she said they want to deliver something bigger and better than what they did last year. Well, that's always the magic words of doom and failure. And so they really want to take the time to get it right. Holland was speaking at the Television Critics Association press tour. Stranger Things is set in small-town America in the 1980s and draws inspiration from Steven Spielberg films of the era. It has won critical acclaim for the paranormal leanings in the series, served up with a healthy slice of nostalgia. There's still no release date for Series 3, but rumors point to next summer.
I hate waiting for a release, Tim.
Yeah, I know, right?
If they just would let us release immediately, that would be the best way to go. Everybody would be happy, Tim. There would be a happy ending all the way around if we all got to release right now.
Right? But you're just standing there and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and the anticipation kills you.
Oh, my God. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Well, let me give you a hand until then, Tim, and we'll move on to the next story. What?
Huh?
Well, to so we can move on and get our minds off of that.
Right. Yeah.
And get on to something else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Oh, you want to give me a hand?
Yeah, to get us moved on to the next story. Too.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So let me jerk you over here to this next story and get started. Huh? What?
Oh, we're talking about stories. Hull's Scariest House. That's what we're at. Yeah. Sorry. Just keep thinking of you jerking me over to the next story.
What?
Huh?
What?
I don't know.
Okay, go ahead.
Hull's Scariest House appears on TV, and investigators found some unbelievable events, Dave. 39 DeGray Street is said to be haunted by child spirits and appears on Riley's Help, My House is Haunted. Oh, it's on Help, My House is Haunted.
That's our buddy Chris Fleming's new show.
Yeah, I see. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, my gosh, Dave, I'm worried about his fashion sense. I'm looking at a picture of him here.
Chris?
Yeah.
You never have to worry about Chris. His fashion sense is always impeccable.
He's slipping into middle age here with this shirt. Yeah, we need to talk. We need to talk off air.
Okay.
I'm really worried about him. A Hull house appeared on national television on Friday night as paranormal investigators attempted to find some ghostly goings-on. Paranormal investigators entered 39 DeGray Street for Help, My House is Haunted, a show on TV channel Really overseas documenting the haunted homes of the UK. The team spent a day and night in the semi-detached house located toward the Beverly Road end of the West Hull Street, and not only heard things go bump in the night, but also a portal in another world. Andrew Yates, owner of the house, told the three investigators of his experiences while living there, including children appearing from within the walls and women being strangled with their scarves while walking around the house. Now a venue for popular paranormal events, the Help team set about finding what they could. The first experience showed psychic Chris Fleming hearing a child yell. He said, "I can hear a child yelling, 'Do you want to go home?' There's a male spirit in this house that doesn't want these children to leave. This little girl is telling me to be careful of the mirrors because there are others here that shouldn't be." With terror-inducing dolls hanging from the walls of the spare bedroom, he said, "I don't like this room. I'm getting chills. This house feels like a macabre theme park, and these possessed dolls are conduits for demonic and mischievous entities." Meanwhile, is it Barry Guy, a tech expert, went to Hull Marina to speak with author Mark Riley, where they discussed the water surrounding Hull being an energy conductor of the energy for one of the malevolent spirits in the DeGray Street house. Tales were also told of the house being a former foster home, with some of the 15 to 20 child spirits being murdered by the adults living there. Back in one of the upstairs rooms, Chris said, "I know you're in here. I'm not going to hurt you. I didn't come here to hurt you. I have to protect myself, so I'm going to be stern. I know I get frustrated if you don't talk to me, and I'm here to help you." With that, he claims a great white shadow. Ken, what's his name, is back.
Ken Howard, yeah,
Ken
the
Howard.
White Shadow.
Yeah.
No, he's gone. He passed away.
No, I know, but he came back for Chris. I mean,
did he?
Who wouldn't?
Wow.
I mean,
well, that's true. He is a handsome man.
Yeah, Chris shows up and says, Ken Howard, come on back, and he just comes back to the Hull House. That's great. I wonder if he brought the rest of the basketball players back with him. Anyways, with that, he claims a great white shadow flew across the floor in front of him, and he said, it's going to be a dangerous night ahead of us, because Ken Howard came back. Later on in the evening, Barry took a picture of the mirror, which proved to hide something incredible, with screams of, oh my God. The team explained the mirror was a portal for ghost attacks. Chris said, oh my God, that's the portal. Can you see these arms are trying to get in? That's unbelievable. I clocked those mirrors early. He clocked them?
Covered, I thought, wasn't it? I don't know, maybe.
No, it says clocked.
All right.
My worst fears have become a reality. Those portals are an open door for a spirit attack. If we are to see daybreak, we must work on a strategy. There is some violent poltergeist activity, was another quote that was brought up. After truth seeker Sandy Lakhdar spent several minutes in the house completely by herself, where footsteps were heard, and she had to leave the house crying. The paranormal activity in the house seemingly picked up with moving wires and apparent anomalies attached to a doll and wardrobe. In one room, Chris asked the child spirits to reach out to him. He said, I know there are some negative spirits and entities here too. It's getting really cold around my hand. They're making contact. 1, 2, 3. This is beautiful. I've got multiple child spirits touching my hand. There are 5 on my hand. I'm starting to get a little emotional. When you feel other people's sadness, it's hard. After wrapping up the evening, the team all agreed that this was one house, an investigation they would not be forgetting anytime soon. Barry said, tonight has been an emotional roller coaster. We've felt oppressed, sadness, excitement, and a whole plethora of emotions. We won't be forgetting this investigation anytime soon.
I know you've only got a couple stories left, but I just added an additional one that looks really bizarre. So, because I love you, I'm giving you more to read. You're welcome, America. Where are we off to next?
Just 1 second here. All right, let's see. We are headed to... we're going back in time. Evidently, a letter to President Jefferson may be the earliest recorded visit of aliens, Dave. It turns out that former U.S. President Thomas Jefferson may have been sent the earliest recorded written observation of a UFO, according to a letter from 1813. A tavern keeper in Portsmouth, Virginia, and a friend visiting from Baltimore believe they saw a UFO in the sky. The 2 men, barkeeper Edward Hansford and Baltimore's John Clark, describe in their letter to President Jefferson how they saw a meteor-like object in the sky. However, this object in the sky began to change shape, first taking on the form of a turtle. I'm sorry. Which also appeared to be...
It gets weirder.
Which also appeared to be much agitated. Oh, an agitated turtle. That's my favorite kung fu... That's my favorite kung fu stance, the agitated turtle. And it
sounds more like a form of irritable bowel syndrome. What are you dealing with today? I've got the agitated turtle.
Doctor, I've got an agitated turtle. And is frequently obscured by a similar smoke.
Oh, no, I can just imagine the kung fu stance of
the agitated turtle. It's my favorite defensive move. The agitated turtle. No one can strike me when I'm posing in the agitated turtle.
Is that where you just lay there and grumble?
That's exactly what it is.
Are you done yet?
You done hit me? The UFO then apparently assumed the shape of a human skeleton, which ascended and descended quickly, according to the mail, which was
weird. Right?
Yeah, which was reprinted in 2010 in the Papers of Thomas Jefferson Retirement Series.
The Retirement Series. I love those collector's plates. I've got all of them.
I know. It's amazing. I got
right
them
next
all
to my George Jefferson Retirement Series too.
Oh, those are wonderful. Did you Do you have the part from the laundromat itself?
Of course.
Oh,
that's the moving on up piece.
Yeah, those are amazing. The letter reads, "We, the subscribers, most earnestly solicit that your honor will give us your opinion on the following extraordinary phenomenon." People are going to hate us by the end of this show. "We saw in the south a ball of fire full as large as the sun at meridian, which was frequently obscured within the space of 10 minutes by a smoke emitted from its own body, but ultimately retained its brilliancy and formed during that period, but with apparent agitation." That's that goddamn turtle. It then assumed,
the agitated turtle.
It then assumed the form of a turtle. Thank you, Zan and Jaina, which then appeared to be much agitated. The agitated turtle. And is frequently obscured by a similar smoke. God, the hemp was good back then. It then assumed the shape of a human skeleton, which was frequently obscured by a like smoke, and is frequently descended and ascended. Then assumed the form of a Scottish Highlander, arrayed for battle and extremely agitated. Oh, the Scotch Highlander was agitated as well. Everybody was agitated.
Everybody, sure.
And ultimately passed to the west and disappeared in its own smoke. Lots of smoke going on. It's unclear whether President Jefferson ever responded. If he had half a mind, he didn't. But according to the website Monticello, it is perhaps the earliest recorded observation of a UFO. There you go.
That's a freaky flipping UFO. This might doth be the final time I drink of Ben Franklin's ale, for I have seen some strange shitteth this evening.
It was an agitated turtle that turned into a Scotch Highlander, and there was smoke and lots of smoke and lots of smoke.
Very weird.
And lots of smoke.
Very weird. Lots of smoke. All right, where are we off to next?
Well, a former Pentagon official calls for a big UFO reveal after a secret investigation. Don't they all, though? We go to Northern Virginia, where if evidence proving that extraterrestrials visited Earth has been squirreled away behind locked doors in Nevada, a former Pentagon official is calling for a big reveal. He wants it out of the closet, Dave. Don't we all?
Okay.
Show it to the National Academy of Sciences, he says. Don't hide it. Show it. Show it. We've been waiting for it, he says, with big exclamation points. We've been waiting for it forever, retired Air Force Colonel David Shea said, raising his voice. But so far that hasn't happened, and I don't know why. 80-year-old Shea was the Air Force's press spokesman on UFOs at the Pentagon from 1967 to 1971. He considers himself an agnostic when it comes to whether some unidentified flying objects are ships piloted by intelligent beings from faraway worlds. He says, I would believe if I saw some evidence that showed we were visited by alien spacecraft, but there hasn't been evidence to my mind of such, he said in an interview at his Northern Virginia home. In 1969, Shea wrote the news release that announced the end of the Project Blue Book, an Air Force investigation of more than 12,000 UFO reports. It concluded that there was no threat to national security, no sign of advanced technology, and no evidence that UFOs are extraterrestrial. And with that, it appeared that to the public that the government had washed its hands of UFOs. But in December, almost 50 years after Project Blue Book ended, came explosive news. The New York Times reported that Bigelow Aerospace had been storing material recovered from unidentified aerial phenomenon in its buildings. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm holding it in.
Okay. That sounded like an agitated turtle right there. Unidentified...
Yertle the agitated turtle.
Yertle the agitated turtle. Unidentified aerial phenomenon in its buildings in Las Vegas as part of its secret Pentagon UFO investigation project called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as AA-TIP. That's what the kids are calling it. The AA-TIP.
Some kind of cigars I used to smoke in high school.
The AA-TIP.
Yeah, they were cherry flavored, weren't they?
Yes, they were. Yeah, they also came in grape.
Yeah. Grape.
They do. Have you ever had a grape swisher?
Yes,
I
have.
Beautiful.
As a matter of fact, my favorite were the cherry, though.
Yeah.
Swisher Sweets.
Shea was not surprised by news of the project's existence, but he thinks if more people were aware of government's history with UFOs, they would better understand why, in his opinion, the government should not get involved again. The UFOs never seem to go away, he said. What is considered the modern UFO era began as Americans' Cold War fears of the Soviet Union were heating up. In 1947, a veteran pilot flying near Mount Rainier in Washington reported seeing 9 strange objects flying in formation at incredible speeds. The sighting made national news. In the same year, the Air Force, still the Army Air Forces at the time, began investigating with intelligence officers in charge reports of UFOs. They really weren't sure what was going on, but by the end of 1949, they quickly became convinced that there was no threat and there was no visitation. There were no advanced technologies, and that was a good time to get out of the business, but they didn't, Shea said. The work went on under several code names, including Project Sign, Project Grudge, and Project Blue Book. Scientists were asked to evaluate if the work should continue, first by the CIA in 1952 and then by the Air Force in 1966. The latter study was led by physicist Edward Condon of the University of Colorado. He concluded that the continuation of Project Blue Book is of dubious value, said Shea. In all, the Project Blue Book examined 12,618 sightings reported between 1952 and 1969. There's a lot of
getting thirsty there, drinking some of Ben Franklin's homemade ale.
Oh my God, there's a lot of reading here. Over 5% of those sightings, 701, remain unidentified. Does that mean that there were spacecraft from another civilization? No, not necessarily. It just means there was not enough data to verify what they were. So that's the problem, Shea said. Interestingly, Project Blue Book is the name of a new drama series that will begin airing this winter on the History Channel. It would appear that it will be more fiction than fact, Shea said after reviewing promotional materials. The History Channel describes the series as based on the true top-secret investigations into unidentified flying objects and related phenomenon conducted by the United States Air Force. It also says a central figure in the series, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, is recruited by the U.S. Air Force to spearhead a clandestine operation called Project Blue Book. Shea said that Project Blue Book investigations were never top secret, and that in real life, Hynek was hired by the Air Force as a special consultant on UFOs, not to spearhead Project Blue Book. Shea is a public relations pro who spent 29 years with the Air Force and another 20-plus years working for Hughes Aircraft and later Raytheon. To complete his master's degree in mass communication from the University of Denver in 1972, he wrote his thesis about how, from a PR perspective, the Air Force handled reports of unidentified flying objects. The story of the Air Force and UFOs is essentially a tale of a credibility gap wider than the Grand Canyon, Shea wrote. During its more than a 20-year history of investigating flying saucers, the Air Force has been accused of almost every conceivable sin and have been guilty of most. In the 1940s and 50s, UFO sightings that got press attention would prompt a quick explanation from the Air Force. In those early days, any explanation of a sensational case seemed preferable to the Air Force than simply saying, "We don't know at this point, the case is still under investigation," wrote Shea. And because Air Force intelligence was kept in charge of the investigations, Shea said there were unnecessary secrecy. You know, the intelligence people won't tell their mother anything. They keep things close to the vest, he said. Of course, the Air Force's actions led to questions and skepticism. What was initially an intelligence matter quickly evolved into a PR problem of the greatest magnitude, Shea wrote. The Air Force, ignoring public opinion on the subject, failed to communicate its conviction that UFOs were no cause for alarm and consequently was unable to convince the American public that what it was saying about UFOs was true. As a result, the Air Force's integrity and credibility as a fighting force was seriously questioned. Asked if, to his knowledge, the government covered up evidence of alien visitation in the past, Shea answered, absolutely not. It would be impossible to do so in our environment of leakers and whistleblowers. That's the name of my new album, by the way, Leakers and Whistleblowers.
That sounds like what you get after a bad case of agitated turtle.
Leakers and whistleblowers?
That's right.
Oh, you have no idea.
You'll have to pardon my friend Tim. He's had a bad case of agitated turtle. That's where all those leakers and whistleblowers are coming from.
In its defense, Shea points out that the Air Force was placed in the impossible position of trying to prove that aliens are not whizzing around above Earth. It's because of that agitated turtle. You can't prove that something doesn't exist. Why doesn't the other guy prove that it doesn't exist, or that it does exist, he said. He also thinks the Air Force has been misunderstood. The Air Force has never said that UFOs aren't spacecraft from another civilization. What the Air Force has said is that there's no convincing evidence that they present a threat or they advance scientific knowledge or that they are alien spacecraft. Convincing evidence is the key, and that's what we don't have, said Shea. What evidence would convince them that extraterrestrials have visited this planet? He said it would be great if an alien were to knock on the door of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, but I don't expect that to happen, Shea said. I would be convinced of extraterrestrial visitation should someone or some organization present to the National Academy of Sciences an ET piece of hardware that the NAS declares not of earthly origin. Despite what he called exhaustive investigations of and studies of UFOs, Shea said the government has come up with nothing. No eureka moment, no threat, no advanced technology, and no alien spacecraft, he went on to say. According to the Department of Defense, AA tip ended in 2012, but journalist Leslie Keene reports that evidence that the program is continuing without federal funding is there. Shea doesn't think that that's a good idea. Why would the government want to do that again, he asked. We've been there and done that. Some argue that UFOs determined by Project Blue Book to be unexplained should be reinvestigated. I submit it wouldn't reveal anything new. There's not enough data there to analyze and determine causes, said Shea. Regarding videos of UFOs apparently taken from military planes and reportedly studied as part of AA tip, Shea said, what did they see? Who knows what they saw? Am I impugning their integrity? No, not at all. They saw something, but we don't know what it is, and we don't have the evidence to suggest what it may be. So again, it comes back to the word evidence. Just because a military pilot spots or chases a UFO doesn't mean the unidentified object should be considered a threat to national security, said Shea. I would say we would be concerned if they were fired upon. We would be concerned if they started bombing our bases. None of that has happened. So whatever they are seeing doesn't seem to be hostile in nature. Not to worry is what I would say. To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, a public benefit corporation co-founded by musician Tom DeLonge and launched last year, they're pursuing its own UFO research. It includes several former government higher-ups and is accepting money from investors. More power to them. I think they're on a wild ghost chase, he went on to say, but I think we need to have some interest in that, said Shea. If they come up with something that the government hasn't, well then great. Asked if he's ever seen a UFO, Shea said no. You'd think with all my interest or experience in this, a friendly visitor would come visit me. Hasn't happened, said Shea, laughing. And that's the end of that story.
All right. How many stories do we have left?
I believe just the one.
All right. Let's wrap up our final story in today's Supernatural news.
Creepy footage shows a golem-like monster creeping through the forest as a family watches anxiously from their car. How fun. Creepy footage shows a golem-like monster staggering out of a remote forest in Canada. Of course it's Canada, right near the Texas border, Dave. The mystery creature caught on camera by a family watching anxiously from their car was parked meters away. It emerged from the trees and creeps to the roadside before scuttling off. The clip has sent the internet into a frenzy, with social media users likening the apparent animal to supernatural Lord of the Rings character Gollum. In the video, the strange apparition appears to walk on its hind legs, stooping over with its shoulders arched and its arms hanging down in front of it. Standing at about 6 feet tall, the faceless human creature seems to be stalking a moose grazing by the roadside. The footage was captured by Audrey Frequet in Quebec's isolated, Gaspé Peninsula? She then uploaded it to YouTube.
I can tell you where my Gas Bay Peninsula is.
Where would that be?
South of the border.
Audrey can be heard talking to her family in the clip as they try to work out what they're looking at. It seems like a Gollum, commented one person on YouTube. My precious, joked another, citing Gollum's famous quote from The Lord of the Rings, as that person sat in their basement munching on Cheetos quite safely. And that's the name of that tune.
All right, well, that's it for Supernatural News. We have to take a quick break. We'll come back. We've got your stories, your phone calls next, right here on Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
Hello, welcome back to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis, and now it's your time to shine, America and world. We've got your stories and a couple of your calls we'll weave in as we progress. Let's begin with this email, Tim. Sarah writes in, and she says, "Hey, guys, I love your show. I recently found it on iTunes, and I tune in every chance I get on my Echo. I've been wanting to write in for a few weeks now about a couple of experiences I've had growing up. I've always been pretty sensitive, and there's been a couple of things that happened when I was young that stuck with me through the years and jump-started my interest in the paranormal. The first was when I was a freshman in high school. My father was in the Army, and we would pick up and move every few years when he was relocated. We had recently moved from South Carolina to New York and were put in military housing. Over the course of the year, I got settled in and became good friends with all my neighbors, who were other Army brats. Well, one day, a group of about 7 or 8 of my friends were sitting around bored and decided it would be a great idea to have a seance. So we gathered in my neighbor's garage, sat in a circle, and kind of made it up on the spot. In case you were wondering, things like this rarely end well. I don't remember much of what we did, but I do remember looking up at one point, and I felt like I was being watched. I looked across the room and could swear I saw the outline of a large, tall man in the shadows. Of course, I didn't say anything because I didn't really believe in anything we were doing, at least not for long. Well, over the course of the next few days, little things began happening at my neighbor's home and mine. They started off small and began to get weirder and darker over time. Several light bulbs in my neighbor's house would explode over the course of a week. When a light was turned on, she would hear random knocks on her walls. I had something that would wait until I was almost asleep in my room, and then it would mess with me. I would feel something run against my feet, and when they stuck out from the covers, I would hear whispers coming from my closet. At this point, I was still pretty skeptical and played it off, even when it would happen nightly. How do you do that, Tim? How do you brush off the feeling that something's touching your feet and you're hearing from your closet? Once, twice, maybe 3 times, never. After that point, you've got something that you should be worried about. How do you just, nothing for me to worry about? Time to nail the damn closet door shut, Tim.
Yeah.
The breaking point came about a month later. I was upstairs in my room one evening, writing a report for class and listening to music when my mother called me downstairs for dinner. I remember coming downstairs and being in a huge hurry so I could finish my paper. So I was the last one down for dinner and the first one back upstairs. When I came in my room, I couldn't find my notebook anywhere. I remembered putting it at the end of my bed when I left, and now it was nowhere to be found. I tore my room apart looking for this notebook and looked in every nook and cranny, but it was nowhere to be found. I remember finally giving up and going to bed, distraught, trying to figure out what excuse I would give my teacher the next day when I didn't have a paper to turn in. I woke from a dead sleep in the middle of the night with a terrible feeling that something was in my bedroom with me. I remember distinctly feeling like something was sucking the energy from my body from the top of my head to my feet. The only way at this point that I can explain this very odd feeling is when ghost hunters explain an entity sucking the energy out of the room in order to manifest. My whole body was cold and tingly. I didn't know what was happening, but I didn't want to open my eyes. I knew someone was standing at the end of my bed. I knew it wasn't human, and I knew that I didn't want to see it. Well, especially if it's sucking your toes and pulling out all your energy, Tim. There's nothing worse than a toe-sucking demon.
Well,
hey, back off. We all have our predilections.
Rolf the dog here. but I know why my demon always comes out as Rolf the dog. After what seemed like hours, the atmosphere lifted and the room became warm and less imposing, and I knew whatever it was gone. I leaped up, turned on the light, and looked around the room. It was then that I saw my notebook I had lost, sitting on the blankets at the end of my bed. I had torn the blankets and sheets off my bed earlier that evening looking for this notebook, so I knew it wasn't there when I had fallen asleep. That was it. That was the final straw. I couldn't deny that we had drawn something up when we had our seance. I also knew that it was trying to get our attention. After all, I had ignored it for this long. What else could this thing do? I know you are here, I told the room, hoping it was listening. I know what you did. You've got my attention, but this is my room. This is my house. You're not welcome here, and I want you to leave me alone. I don't know how I knew the words to say, but I knew what I had to stand up for my feelings and stand up to this thing. After that, things became quiet, so it must have worked. I've since had other experiences. I've also learned that I'm a sensitive. I guess they call people empaths when they can feel the emotions of the people and spirits around them. It's still something I'm not totally comfortable with. When I'm somewhere that I'm feeling something particularly strong, I tend to drown it out with TV, radio, anything that can distract me. I constantly search for other people with experiences similar to mine, which has led me to your show. Thank you for that. I do have other stories, but I felt the need to share what has kicked my obsession off, and hope to submit more stories in the future. Thanks so much, and that comes from Sarah. Yes, Sarah, please send us more of your experiences. We'd love to hear them, especially if they're toe-sucking demons. That's kind of one of Tim's fetishes. He appreciates that.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave and Tim and everyone at Darkness Radio. It's just you and me, right?
Yeah.
Who else is he addressing?
I don't know.
Why are there spirits that we don't know about that are on the show with us, Tim?
No idea.
Or is it all the voices in our heads are finally bleeding through and they can hear them on air, Tim?
I think so, yeah.
I want to start off this email by letting you guys know I really love your show. I've been listening for 8 years now. I think the show is great, and I hope it continues for many more years to come. So I have a short story type thing and also a question. This is quite recent, too. I came down with a cold on New Year's Eve, and I'm still sick now. Oh, this was sent to me a little bit ago, Tim, just so we're clear. He's not holding on to a cold for 8 months. I seem to just be getting sicker, unfortunately, but in this time of being sick, I've been noticing I'm seeing shadows in my house a lot more. I live with my mother, grandmother, and our cat and dog. Now, I guarantee that every time I've seen a shadow, no one else was in the room at the time that I was in it. I've seen white shadows, which seem to be quick but elegant moving flashes of light, but I've also seen black shadows that seem to lurk and look like they're looming over something. And I've seen these both during the day and during the night. Just this afternoon, I was sitting on my bed, which is directly in front of the window, and I was playing guitar. I seemed to sense something behind me, and I whipped my head around to see a dark shadow figure with its back arched and head looking down. It moved oddly past my window. My room is on the second floor, and this was in broad daylight. I looked around outside, but I couldn't see anything or anyone that could have made this shadow. I'm just wondering if I am seeing shadows because maybe being sick has made me more susceptible to seeing them. I wonder if these could be spirits of some kind. I've always been a sensitive to ghosts and things alike. I've been told many times that I have the gift. Have you guys ever heard of an increased sensitivity to the paranormal when you're sick? Once again, I love you guys. I hope that you are getting or you're able to read this on the air. Greetings from Canada, eh? And that comes from Richard. Well, sure, Richard, especially if you were really sick, maybe 1 foot in the grave sick, you didn't even realize it. You were straddling both worlds. Huh?
Yeah.
What do you think, huh? Is there a possibility?
Actually, a lot of people I know that are mediumistic tend to have increased allergies. They tend to be ill quite a bit.
Hi, Dave and Tim. I love you guys and listen as much as I can. And I was listening to a Parashare episode, and there was a guy who called in who was in the military, and that he said he heard a voice telling him to get out of the way before an accident occurred. Something similar happened a few years ago to a guy I was dating in the military. It was a Sunday, and my boyfriend, James, the name has been changed to protect identities, and some of his friends decided to go for a drive around the country roads outside the base. They were driving along, listening to music and talking and joking, just having a good old time. All of a sudden, James heard what he described as the voice of God say, "Put on your seatbelt." God, sounds so ominous there, Tim.
Yeah, he does.
So he put on his seatbelt and turned to his friend sitting next to him and told him to put his on as well. About 10 seconds later, the vehicle started flipping and flipping at least 5 times. It landed on its wheels, and because James had his seatbelt on, he was able to quickly get out and saw the vehicle begin to go up in flames. He pulled his 3 friends out of the car before it was completely engulfed in flames. I wasn't even in the same state when this happened, so I drove there the following day to be with my boyfriend and help him out over the next few days. The driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and the roof was crushed, causing serious head injuries, but everyone else survived with superficial injuries. My boyfriend had a badly twisted ankle. He could barely walk on it, so he had no idea how he pulled the 3 people from the burning car. There was a rumor that the driver crashed on purpose, trying to avoid deployment. But the rumor was put to rest when James saw him the next day. The wreck, when he saw him the next day, the driver just broke down when he saw my boyfriend and told him how grateful he was to James for saving his life. When he was pulled from the wreck, his brain was visible, so it was nothing short of a miracle that he even survived. And he was released from the hospital the following day. That seems a bit too fast for me, Tim. Mental note, if my brain is ever exposed, I should stay in at least 2 days. It's my, duct tape or not, Tim, I should stay in for 2 days.
Yeah.
Obviously had a long road to recovery and luckily no brain damage. Maybe there is someone up there looking down on our troops and warning them to keep them safe. Thanks for what you guys do. I hope you all have a much better future and many years to come doing what you love. Also, I'm already a big fan of your podcast, and I know it's going to be a big hit, and that's Sincerely, Sarah. Well, thank you, Sincerely, Sarah. How about if we take a second, Tim, and go to our phone lines? Remember, if you have a story to share, give us a call, 651-300-4977. Leave us a message. It records for about 3 minutes. So if you've got a cool paranormal experience of your own that you'd like to share, give us a call, 651-300-4977, and it may be featured on an upcoming episode just like this caller.
Hello, gentlemen. My name is Ryan Roschke, and I live in Austin, Texas. I've learned about your show through Tom Bernard. I'm from Minnesota myself, New Prague. And I wanted to share a story I had, an experience I had back in 2009. It was actually September 9th, 2009. I worked for the city of Austin, and we were doing a training class in one of the high-rise buildings down there, and it is probably a block away from Stubbs Barbecue, which is an outdoor concert venue. And it was about after lunch, we started hearing this band started practicing. Well, the band sounded real gruff and real screaming into the mic, and everyone was kind of joking about it. And we could hear them plain as day, and we were, stories above them, and a block and a half away, and we could hear their music pretty loudly. Well, it was about the end of the class, and they were still practicing, and everyone said goodbye, and we walked out, and I was parked on the top floor of the ground or parking garage, and the minute I hit the elevator doors opening to the parking garage, I had a sense of fear and anxiety just overcome me. And I couldn't understand it, but it was overwhelming, and it was very, very fearful. And when I got to the top floor, which is open parking, I just felt like I was in the middle of a column of demons. That's what I call it anyways, a column of demons. I just felt, I couldn't see them, but I just felt just things just flying past me. And, I just got very fearful and just ran to my car. So I got into my vehicle, and I started calming down and said a little prayer and relaxed. Well, I got very curious about what that was. And I don't know why, but I felt it was tied to the music. So I drove around towards Stubbs Barbecue to find out if I could see who exactly is playing there that evening. Well, I turned the corner. When I turned the corner, it was a tour bus, and on the side of the tour bus was a naked woman with a goat's head and an upside-down pentagram sitting on it all. And I knew exactly, this had to have been them. So I went home, researched who was playing at Stubbs that night, and it was an Icelandic band called Dimor Borgir. And they're a dark metal band, I guess satanic, if you will. But it was in the middle of the daytime, and it just completely freaked me out and really opened my eyes to the trueness of good and evil and the spirits. But listen to your show. Keep up the great work, and I thank you guys. Bye.
Dear Dave and Tim, I understand that you and a few lucky members of the Army of Darkness were invaded Britain last year. I wish I could have joined you and see you, but I'll be doing my own invasion in the Edinburgh Vaults. Jack the Ripper tour and many other sites are in store for me on my third trip to my second home. I'll let you know if the spirits come with. Well, since you first mentioned your British invasion tour last year, I heard the name Chillingham dropped once or twice, and I wanted to share with you the experiences I had in that very castle back in 2009. As a college graduation present, my parents made me and my dream of staying overnight in a castle a reality. To say I was excited was an understatement. However, unknowingly, my mother had booked us an overnight stay in one extremely haunted Chillingham Castle. I had no complaints. Actually, I was even more excited to know that I would be staying over in a haunted location, as the paranormal was always something that intrigued me from a very young age. The castle was as beautiful as it was foreboding. Certainly a structure that was meant to be more imposing than welcoming, but it drew me in nonetheless. We had access to the entire castle and the grounds, and I can tell you, it was a graduation present I will never forget. When I say we, I should clarify it was my mother, my father, myself, and a very dear friend of mine that were on this 2-week trip. We stayed in what's known as the Gray apartment. And there is a portrait of a Lady Gray hanging within the apartment for which it's named. Lady Gray's real name was Lady Mary Berkeley, and she was the lady of the castle for a time. There is a well-known story that Lady Gray will emerge from her portrait and wander the corridors of the castle at night, but my friend and I were unable to witness this for ourselves. I would have killed for a static night vision camera. However, I can tell you that I felt a sense of sadness and peace coming from her portrait. I thanked her for allowing us to stay in her home, and surprisingly, I felt very comfortable in that little apartment, with the exception of the bathroom. Both my parents and my friend abhorred that bathroom. We would actually go to the bathroom in pairs because we always felt uneasy about it, and it felt better with a lookout. Now remember the bathroom, for I will return here. Being a good haunted location, there was, of course, a ghost tour, so come nightfall, we grabbed our lanterns and went to hear about the history of the castle and the land that it sat upon. Northumberland is right to the border between England and Scotland, and you can only imagine the carnage and bloodshed that it had seen over the years. It was about halfway through the tour, probably sooner than that my father left us and returned to the apartment as he wasn't feeling well. In fact, he hadn't been feeling well since the moment we pulled up to the castle. It wasn't so much the torture chamber we were in for the ghastly descriptions of what John Sage, the torturer of Chillingham, had done to his victims that turned my father's stomach, then it was something else. So my dad left us to continue the tour while he went back to the apartment alone. It would not be until morning, the following morning, that he would relate this story to us. But apparently, when he had gone back to, well, let's just say, worship the porcelain god in that creepy bathroom, he heard someone say, "Bobby?" in a Scottish accent. Well, I guess it would have been, "Bobby!" My dad was the only living soul in the apartment at the time, and this occurred as the rest of us were in another section of the castle on a ghost tour. He was so ill that he just didn't care what he was hearing at the moment, and proceeded with his worship of the almighty porcelain god. Later, my father would joke that he usually doesn't have auditory hallucinations with a Scottish accent. I should point out that my father is the skeptic in the family, and he was the only one who was sick the entire time we were at Chillingham. The second we left, he was back to normal. There was no rhyme or reason to his illness. Nothing he ate. It started when he arrived at the Chillingham and disappeared when we left Chillingham. He tries to explain it as being something irrational, but even he can't really put a finger on what the cause of the sudden illness was. The rest of the night more or less went by without incident. We heard footsteps coming from below and continued to go to the bathroom in pairs, but for the most part I slept very well, with all the lights on and hugging my friend. I'm not proud, I'll admit it. Most of the activity through, though, seemed to be in the room my parents were sleeping in. It was referred in the castle as the 3 steps room, as there were 3 small steps that led into the room itself. There was an armoire next to the bed that my mom kept getting annoyed with as it kept opening during the night, and she had to keep getting up to shut it. It wasn't until morning that she realized the armoire latched from the inside and that it shouldn't have opened at all. The bathroom? Still creepy in the daytime. I refused to even take a shower in there the next morning because it just felt like you were being watched the entire time. Pervy ghosts watching me while I shower. No, thank you. As we waited for our taxi to come pick us up, my friend and I decided to walk the castle grounds and see it for ourselves in the daylight. For a place with a history, so much death, torture, and bloodshed, it was gorgeous. One of the most beautiful landscapes I've ever seen. However, if you look closely at the trees around the property, you'll notice that the trunks seem to be twisted and contorted into gruesome, pained faces, screaming faces. There's a story about a hanging tree on the property, and while I am aware that the human mind does like to matrix things, there's just a vibe that these trees give off in an otherwise serene area that doesn't seem right. As my friend and I were returning to the castle this particular morning on our walk around the property, we ended up running into one of the groundskeepers who was walking his dog. We stopped to chat with the gentleman and hopefully get some puppy love from his dog, seeing as we missed our own puppies back in the States. The thing was, though, the dog would not come near us. Even his owner said this was strange behavior for him. One minute the dog was happy and bouncing. The next he was cowering behind his owner with his tail tucked in, ears back. The 3 of us chatted a bit before we all went our separate ways, and the second dog was away from us. It was back to bouncing, and the second the dog was away from us, it was back to bouncing and being happy again. I remarked to my friend how bizarre that was as we continued walking back to the castle. But we didn't get very far. As soon as I found myself bracing for impact with the gravel path we were on, there were no tree roots for me to trip over. The ground was not slippery, and while I am a blonde, I can attest that it was not one of those moments. I just fell. My knees and hands were all scraped up and bloody, and I can't explain it except to say that it felt like someone stuck their foot out in front of me to trip me. No one was there. I would have typically chalked this up to my own clumsiness, but after seeing the dog react in such a strange manner and knowing for a fact that I did not slip or trip on anything in the environment, I just can't explain it. In one of the rooms downstairs, the one that leads to the dungeon, my parents, my friends, and myself are watching a doorknob turn by itself. Fun fact about this door, it was a swing door, and the knob was only there for decoration. And there was a window on the door itself, so you could see who or what was on the other side. And of course, there was no one there, just a turning doorknob that wasn't supposed to turn. There's also a picture that my mom took of our tour guide from the ghost tour, William. It wasn't until reviewing much later that I noticed someone standing at the gate behind him. To me, it looks like a woman with her hands clasped in front of her. I know that no one was behind William when the picture was taken, and no one in the castle was dressed like that, so your guess is as good as mine. It was a little rainy, so I wonder if maybe Lady Berkeley came out to see what was going on in her home. I've attached a photo so others can see what they can make out of it. One last note about Chillingham, don't take anything from the building, not even a bloody piece of fruit. Now, I've been reading and watching every little thing on paranormal since I was a little kid, and I know a big no-no is taking objects from a haunted location. What's funny about this is, this wasn't an object. This was a piece of fruit laid out for our breakfast. You see, my mother is diabetic, and since we were going to be out on the road that morning, I suggested she take a banana with her for her blood sugar in case it crashed. Well, apparently the curse of Chillingham extends to taking fruit for medical purposes as well. We ended up lost to our next destination. The bed and breakfast we had booked somehow lost our reservation, and we almost didn't have a place to stay for the night. Things worked out in the end, but thankfully. But it was a bit hairy there for a while. And in case you're wondering, we threw away the cursed fruit. Even my skeptic of a father wasn't taking a chance. I may never be able to explain my experiences during my stay at Chillingham Castle, but I can tell you it's a place in rich history, steeped in tragedy and shrouded in mysterious beauty. If you're brave enough to stay the night in this magnificent castle, just a moment to thank Lady Berkeley for allowing you into her home. She might just pay you a visit and make sure that your stay is a pleasant one. Just make sure you don't take any cursed fruit from hell home with you. That comes from Kirsty in Orlando, Florida. Well, that's very cool. Thank you, Kirsty. I appreciate the tale of terror. Our next story, Tim. Good evening, Dave and Tim. I'm a recent listener to the podcast. There is nothing quite like listening about black-eyed children while working a graveyard shift in an already haunted place. This story is not about that, but a story about how I experienced the grasp of the dying, even from nearly 400 miles away. I knew I was in a dream when I realized I stood in a museum. I hadn't been to a museum in several years, and our sleepy college town doesn't pride itself on the past. The museum itself was rather sparse and empty. I could feel the reverence, but it seemed a little out of place with no exhibits to show. The internal boredom got the better of me, and I spied a section of the museum sectioned off from the rest of the room. It clearly had strange warning from, it clearly had signage warning people from entering. I couldn't read anything, but the hint was there all the same. Do not enter. I'm quite the rebellious person, so I decided to ignore the clearly obvious and entered the room anyway. I walked down a short hallway to a large showroom bathed in an icy blue light. I stopped for a moment and drew in the strange piece I felt in that room. I scanned the artifacts and recognized many of the pieces being examples of my favorite era. For some reason, as a youth, I was drawn to the Crusades. These objects represented my passion and obsession with the age. Massive paintings of Christians fighting the encroaching horde of non-believers. Maces and shields glowing with holy power. Banners draped from the railings above, almost fluttering in an unexpected breeze. This was paradise. It was everything I wanted. I was at peace. However, I felt a presence in the room. I turned to the entrance to see if someone had followed me, but there was no one there. I walked to the door and peered down the hallway to make sure, shrugged it off, and turned around to see my paradise. My paradise was then bathed in flames. The paintings of the Crusaders morphed into demons, tormenting the sinners cast to hell. The banners above my head crackled in flames. The holy weapons were twisted to demonic representations of torture. I fell to my knees and gasped. The sheer horror of watching my passion burn away tore me apart. I scrambled to pick up those shattered pieces when the same presence I felt before manifested in front of me. I couldn't mistake the figure for anything more than Big Evil himself. I tried my best to move away, whimpering all the while, and the devil merely closed the gap without much effort. I was now dangling from the ground, trapped in his burning grip. The devil leaned in and smiled. "Isn't this precious? Everything you love destroyed." I didn't understand it. The voice didn't sync up with the devil in front of me. It was too familiar. It didn't take long before the devil started to melt. It was more horrific and graphic version of the Indiana Jones style when the Nazis opened the Ark. The goo dripped away and revealed a more horrifying sight than Satan himself. My grandfather stared at me, a cold smile on his lips and a dead stare in his eyes. "Don't you understand? You're mine. You'll always be mine." He erupted into a chilling laughter, sending my body into shock. I struggled to escape his grasp, but for some reason my strength ebbed and faded. A heartbeat later, I awoke in bed, the laughter still echoing in my ears. Paralyzed. I couldn't move. I struggled and whimpered, scanning the room frantically for anyone or anything that could help me. There was no help coming, but I continued to struggle anyway. A few seconds after the chilling laughter stopped, I regained full control of my body and tumbled out of my bed with a heavy thud. I was covered in a cold sweat. I trembled and grasped as if I had run a marathon while never moving. I pulled myself up to the bed and draped my limp torso on top of it, reminding myself it was a horrible nightmare. 30 seconds later, my phone rang. This was while having a landline was the thing, so no caller ID available at that point since it was far too expensive. The only reason why someone called was either they were in jail or the answering machine picked up. For some reason, I knew what was coming. My estranged mother started talking. She said that my grandfather just died. She continued to prattle on about how happy I should be, but I couldn't bother to take care at that moment. My grandfather, a Satanist, had passed to the other side. You would think I'd be happy a serial child molester died. Instead, I worried what this meant for his victims, including me. Thank you, and that comes from Matthew. Wow, Matthew, very deep, very dark. Thank you very much for being open and sharing that story with us. Remember, if you want to call in and share your story, you can call us at 651-300-4977, 651-300-4977, or email me your stories like all of these listeners. You can email me, Dave@darknessradio.com, Dave@darknessradio.com, or our Beyond voicemail, 651-300-4977. You can record a 3-minute story to share with us right here on Beyond the Darkness, just like our next caller.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Tim. Hi, Tim. Hi, Dave. This is Lisa. I'm from Springfield, Illinois, and it's not really a paranormal situation, but I was listening to your podcast on Saturday morning, July 28th, and when Tim said phenomena, in my head, I heard the Muppet theme song, and when you started that, mind you, I'm mucking out a barn, I started laughing out loud. The horses actually came and stuck their head in to see what was going on. So thank you for making that a little bit more of an enjoyable task. Have a great day. Bye.
Hey, my name is Wayne, and one time me and my girlfriend were at home, and I heard a tap on our front window. So I thought someone was messing around. I went outside real quick and heard what sounded like 3 heavy men running up the roof away from me. But the thing was, no one was there, except for like a square shadow in the corner of the roof. And when I went in the house, my wife was like, "Who's on the roof?" And I said, nobody. Also, a spirit used to, every time I would pass out on the computer chair, it would knock near me and wake me up. Like, almost every time. That stopped. I told you guys another story about I walked out front and there was an orb, like UFO, directly above my house, about 600 feet up. And I said, "Hey, get out here, an effing UFO." And when I said that, it disappeared. So then I said, "Can you show yourselves again?" And it lit up again further away. And I continued to ask that 3 more times, and each time they turned their lights back on, but they were further away until they finally looked like a moving star. And I know I'm a contactee, but they don't let me remember much. I have many other stories of UFOs and ghosts, but I'll tell you all later. Take care. Later, Dave. Later, Tim.
All right, Tim, time to wrap up with a few more emails. Hey, Dave and Tim, my name is Taylor. This is the event that happened 9 years ago when I was still in high school. I was 16 years old at the time, and it was a weekend, nice sunny day. I was up in my room playing video games, and my mom was downstairs. All of a sudden, I heard screaming. I ran downstairs to find my mom in the fetal position, shaking and crying. After getting her to calm down, she told me she was doing the dishes and felt someone breathing on her neck. You have to know there were only 2 of us in that house. She thought it was me messing with her, and she turned around and said she saw something and didn't want to go into detail with me being a teen. And I might have thought it was all BS, but a few nights later, I'm in bed asleep, and I wake up feeling breathing on my face. I thought my mom was trying to wake me up for school. I opened my eyes to see the clock. It's a little past 3 a.m. Seeing that I thought it was pretty weird to wake me up that early, I look over my shoulder and see this face with black eyes. I was so stunned in fear, I closed my eyes and opened them again, and it was gone. I sprinted down the hall to my mom's room and told her what I saw, and she told me that was exactly what she saw after her experience. I slept with the light on in my room for months. I'll never forget that night. It still haunts me to this day. And that comes from Z-Tay. Well, you know what? If your mom was kind of bothered by this thing in the broad daylight while she was doing dishes, I don't know if keeping a bedroom light on is going to keep anybody safe, Tim.
No, I don't think so.
Hey, guys, I'm a huge fan of the show. I listen all the time. I'm fascinated by the supernatural, cryptids, and extraterrestrials, though I'm frankly not convinced that they exist. Though I have had one strange, rather spooky experience that I just can't explain and have been dying, pun intended, to share. When I was about 15, my grandfather passed away. My family took a trip to see my grandmother soon after. The first night we were in the house, I had a dream that I had walked into the kitchen and my grandfather's voice came from the phone's answering machine. He spoke to me very casually, asking how I was and telling me he was doing fine. I woke up and went straight to the kitchen. My mother, father, sister, aunt, and grandmother were surrounding the answering machine. They explained that they could add to the greeting message, but couldn't erase my grandfather's half of the message. I don't know how to explain the dream or the answering machine, and to this day, the memory still gives me goosebumps. Thanks for letting me share, and that comes from Nicole. Wow, 2 grandfather stories and kind of creepy stuff going on. Hello, sir. Just one of us, Tim. Apparently, I'm not sure if it's you or me. Which one? I think you're more of the sir, and I'm more of a hey, mister. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ricky J. Rowell, and I'm currently living in the greater Houston, Texas area and working as a federal officer with a division of the DOJ. I'm a husband of 15 years with 2 children. Now you know a little about who I am. I'll move on to why I'm contacting you. Since I was very young, I've always been able to see spirits, and I believe that they know I can see them. They walk around us still on this earth. I've even had a few incidents where I saw a jinn, also known as a shadow demon. During one event, the 6 people I was with also saw the jinn. It seems like I attract this type of activity. I weekly have very detailed deja vu moments from dreams I've had. The dreams may have been from 12 years ago and happened today or last night. I also seem to attract animals. A lot of people around me have noticed this. My wife's aunt had a bulldog that is known for biting people. He doesn't know, but the first time I met him, he wanted my attention and followed me around. This happens all the time. I've started these last few years working on a few things, like the ability to go somewhere else inside my mind, and during the state, I can completely ignore physical pain. I was wondering your professional opinion concerning the activity and how common this is among people. Thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to your input. Ricky Rowell. Well, Ricky, here is Mr. Sir. Tim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I don't think I'm sir here. I think you're sir here in this.
Oh, look at you passing the buck. Yeah. I don't. You know, some people are just more sensitive and have abilities far beyond those of mortal men. I don't know that there's anything more I can add to that, but thank you for sharing. Hey, Dave, a big fan. This story happened about 50 years ago. My grandmother used to be on a volunteer fire department. One night, like I said, 50 years ago, my grandmother and uncle were sitting in their yard. All of a sudden, they hear this loud crash. They jumped into their cars to see what and where the noise had come from. On the next street over, a motorcycle had crashed into a tree. My grandmother, who was a volunteer firefighter and paramedic, started working on the young man, who told the neighbors to call for an ambulance because at this time, there was no 911 yet. So my grandmother began working on this young man who was in serious condition and started to notice across the street from the wreck that someone kept looking out the window. She noticed the curtains of the window being moved, and she could see the shape of someone. She and my uncle kept seeing this over and over. My uncle then said to my grandmother, "Why won't they come out and help us?" This happened 5 or 6 times within 15 minutes. When the medics and fire truck arrived, it was too late. The young man had passed away in my grandmother's arms. Once the police arrived, my uncle and grandmother told them that the people in the house never came to help. They kept looking out the window, so the police went to the door and knocked, but no one came. So police started to look around and realized that the house was empty. Thinking that someone could be in there, the police gained access into the home. They started looking around and noticed that all the windows were locked and the doors were bolted shut. No one could have been in there, the cops told them. So my uncle came up with a theory after years went by. He believed that whatever was in that house that night was death. He believed that death was looking out that window and was just waiting for the young man to pass away. Thought I would pass this on to you. I love your show. Keep up the great work. And that comes from Moonbeam Star. The other concept to think about Moonbeam is maybe, just maybe, it was the spirit of the boy that had already been taken out of his body, as many people have had those near-death experiences, find themselves jettisoned out of the body. And he may have been in the house glancing out to see what was going on and maybe not able to watch the whole thing unfold as it was very hard for him to process. Just a thought, just an idea. That's it for this week. We're wrapping up another edition of Parashare Supernatural News. Remember to give us a call, leave your voicemail, your stories of the supernatural, or if you just have a message for Tim and I and you want to say hi and show us a little love, give us a call, 651-300-4977. We will be back tomorrow with another brand new edition of the best in paranormal talk radio and a new theater of the mind here on Beyond the Darkness.